Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, turning off your alarm, making your coffee.
Right, just the usual routine.
Yeah, the usual routine. And as you open whatever device you use to connect to the world, every single channel, every feed is just broadcasting these 4 simple words.
The famine is over.
Exactly. The famine is over. And I want to be really clear right off the bat here. We aren't talking about a literal famine of food.
Right, yeah.
Like if you're listening to this, chances are you know where your next meal is coming from. But what the source material we're exploring today argues is that you, me, everyone we know, we are currently starving.
Yeah, we're living through this 4,000-year-old mental, economic, and spiritual famine.
It's a famine of time.
Yeah.
And energy, and just human potential.
It really is. It's that constant low-level hum of anxiety you feel when you check your bank account.
Oh, man, yeah. Or that lingering exhaustion at the end of a 40-hour week that makes you feel like you're just, surviving instead of actually living.
Right. And it's a really striking premise to begin with because it frames our modern anxieties not as individual failings, but as the symptoms of this deeply ingrained psychology of scarcity.
Exactly. And if you've been following our recent deep dives into this stack of source material, we've been building up to something massive.
We really have.
We started a few sessions ago with what the author calls the gray diamond, which, for those who missed it, was essentially this highly optimized 8-step process cycle for managing daily tasks.
Right. It was very practical, defining a task, planning, reflecting, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then we moved into the red diamond. That took that same mechanical cycle and infused it with frequency, operating from love and courage instead of fear.
Which was a big shift.
Huge shift.
Yeah.
But today, we are pushing this all the way to the limit. We are looking at the final manifestation of this theory. The author calls this ultimate architecture the Diamond Aspire.
And the resulting societal shift is called New Earth.
Right. And the jump from, personal management to literal societal transformation, that requires a unified theory.
It does. And the Diamond Aspire is precisely that. It takes these individual diamonds, the physical gray, the courageous red, and introduces the green diamond of abundance and the blue diamond of divine consciousness.
And stacks them vertically, right?
Exactly. It's this multidimensional model that attempts to prove that intellectual growth, spiritual enlightenment, biological anatomy, and even macroeconomic stability are all driven by the exact same upward mechanism.
Which is just a massive claim. To say that your spiritual enlightenment is mechanically linked to how your local grocery store is taxed.
It sounds wild.
It sounds completely wild.
Right.
But as we dig into the physics and the biology of this today, I really want you, the listener, to keep one thing in mind.
This isn't just abstract philosophy.
Exactly. It's a literal blueprint for how you can reclaim your energy and your voice in a world that's basically designed to extract both from you.
So we should probably start with the architecture itself.
Yeah, the Diamond Aspire. If we're stacking these diamonds vertically, what does this structure actually represent? How does the author map it out?
Well, imagine a towering structure pointing upward. At the base, you have the gray diamond. That represents our physical, everyday reality.
Like chores and basic survival.
Right, the three-dimensional world. Then on top of that is the red diamond, which is the heart, courage, vision.
Okay, following so far.
Above that, the green diamond of higher awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, capping the spire, the blue diamond, which is pure, unadulterated consciousness.
But they don't just leave it as geometry, do they?
No, they map this vertical ascent directly onto the traditional Eastern chakra system, and then they assign numerical frequencies to each level based on Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness.
Okay, wait, let's pause right there. Because if we are going to assign literal numbers to human emotions, we need to understand the methodology.
Yeah, that's fair.
What exactly is the Hawkins scale? Because I think a lot of people hear frequencies of consciousness and just write it off as, New Age jargon.
Right, it's a crucial piece of context. Dr. David Hawkins was a psychiatrist and researcher. She spent decades trying to map human consciousness using applied kinesiology.
Which is basically muscle testing, right?
Yes. Measuring the body's physical response to various stimuli, thoughts, emotional states. His theory was that the human nervous system acts as a highly sensitive measuring device.
That can distinguish truth from falsehood.
Exactly. And high-energy states from low-energy states. So, based on millions of these calibrations, he developed a logarithmic scale from 1 to 1,000.
Logarithmic meaning it scales exponentially.
Right. A small increase in the number is a massive increase in actual power. And at the very bottom of the scale, down in the 20s and 30s, you find emotions like shame, guilt, and apathy.
which the source maps directly to the bottom of the A-spire.
At the root chakra, yes.
So the root chakra governs our connection to the physical world, basic survival. In the A-spire, this is the realm of the gray diamond.
Right. And if your energy is stuck here vibrating at like a frequency of 20, you're dominated by shame and fear. Your whole existence is defensive.
You aren't creating art. You're just trying to survive the winter. It's the ultimate starvation mindset.
You're in the famine. But as you move up the aspire, the frequency increases. You move through the sacral and solar plexus chakras.
Rising in personal power, right? Moving into the red diamond.
Yes. And then you hit this massive pivot point in human architecture, the heart center.
And according to the Hawkins scale, what number do we hit at the heart?
The heart center corresponds to a frequency of 500, which Hawkins labeled as love.
But not just like romantic love, I'm assuming.
No, it's a profound, unconditional reverence for all life. In the model, the heart is the crucial bridge. It connects the lower, physical diamonds of survival with the upper, spiritual diamonds.
So just by moving our internal operating system from defensive survival up into unconditional reverence, we jump from a frequency of 20 to 500.
An exponential 500. And it keeps going up. From the heart, it moves into the green and blue diamonds, passing through the throat chakra, the pineal gland.
Often called the third eye.
Right. And finally reaches the crown chakra at the very top of the head. That frequency is 1,000, the absolute peak of the scale. Pure divine enlightenment.
Okay, blending corporate flowcharts with chakras and a psychiatric scale is already a massive synthesis. But the author brings in Bloom's taxonomy too, right?
They do, yeah. A completely different, purely Western academic framework.
Which is wild, because if you've ever been a teacher, you know Bloom's taxonomy. It's the gold standard for how we educate people. But mapping it onto chakras seems, I don't know, incredibly unorthodox.
It really is. So Bloom's taxonomy was published in 1956. It's a hierarchical framework used to classify learning objectives into levels of complexity.
To move education away from just memorizing facts.
Exactly. The goal was to provide a roadmap for developing high-level critical thinking. And integrating it into the A-spire is probably the author's most profound philosophical move.
Because it's saying intellectual mastery and spiritual enlightenment are the exact same mechanism.
Yes. The same biological and energetic ascension.
Okay, let's map it out level by level because this gets really practical. How do the bottom tiers of Bloom's align with the bottom of the A-spire?
So at the lowest level of Bloom's, you have knowledge and comprehension. This is basic rote memorization. You can recall a fact, but you don't really know how to use it yet.
And the author places this squarely in the gray diamond.
Right, at the root and sacral chakras.
Which makes total sense. Think about learning to play the piano. When you first start, you are entirely in the gray diamond.
Oh, absolutely.
You're just trying to memorize where middle C is. It's purely mechanical. You're bound by the physical limitations of your hands. You aren't making art yet, you know?
You're just trying not to play the wrong note. And the A-spire makes the point that you cannot skip this step. You can't reach high-level states without mastering the foundational reality first.
Right. And then we move up into the red diamond, approaching the heart center.
Frequency of 500. And we hit the next levels of Bloom's, application and analysis.
Okay, what do those entail?
Application is taking what you've memorized and actually using it in a new situation. Analysis is breaking a complex system down to understand how the parts relate.
So continuing the piano analogy, this is where you aren't just reading notes anymore, you're actually playing a song, you're applying it.
Exactly. And with analysis, you start to understand the music theory underneath it all.
You understand why a chord progression feels sad or triumphant. You move from the mechanical into the emotional.
You enter the heart center. That raw data is synthesized with human emotion and vision, but it continues upward, past the throat, into the third eye and crown chakras.
The blue diamond.
Approaching that frequency of 1,000. And we reach the absolute pinnacle of Bloom's taxonomy, synthesis and judgment.
Synthesis being.
Why?
Creating something new.
Yes, taking disparate parts and combining them to create an entirely original whole. In the analogy, you're composing your own masterpiece now.
You've transcended the mechanics. You're a creator of new reality. Which leads us to the very top, the crown chakra.
Frequency 1,000.
And the corresponding Bloom's level is judgment. Now, I have to push back on this.
Go ahead.
It feels like a massive contradiction. When we talk about spiritual growth, almost every tradition says to let go of judgment, right?
Right. Observe without judging.
Exactly. So why would the author and Benjamin Bloom place judgment as the ultimate, highest cognitive and spiritual state?
It's a really vital question, and it hinges entirely on our cultural definition of the word versus its structural meaning here.
Because we usually think of judgment as petty moralizing.
Exactly. Condemning others, operating from ego. But if we look at where that kind of petty judgment comes from on the Hawkins scale, it's not at the top.
It's at the bottom.
It originates in shame, guilt, and fear. We judge others harshly when we're operating at a frequency of 20 because we're terrified and trying to protect our ego.
So if petty judgment is at the root chakra, what does judgment mean at the crown chakra?
In Bloom's, where it's sometimes updated to evaluation, judgment means the ultimate capacity for discernment.
Discernment, okay.
It's the ability to look at a complex system and possess the wisdom to evaluate its true worth, its structural integrity, and its alignment with universal truth.
Ah, I see. It's not like I judge you to be a bad person. It's more like an engineer looking at a bridge.
That's a great way to put it.
The engineer doesn't have a vendetta against the steel. They just possess the mastery to say, that support beam is misaligned, the bridge will collapse.
Perfect distillation. At a frequency of 1,000, judgment is the divine ability to see reality exactly as it is, free from the distortions of fear or societal programming.
Wow. Okay, so the architecture is brilliant. We have this unified tower mapping our survival to our discernment. But here's the hurdle I'm staring at.
What's that?
This sounds like an immense amount of voltage. How does our flesh and bone actually process it? Are we just fleshy sacks carrying around a metaphysical concept?
The author actually argues that the A-spire is physically engineered into our cellular structure. And to illustrate this, they draw from Dr. Zach Bush.
The physician who studies cellular communication. I found this part of the notes absolutely captivating. We're talking about the literal formation of a human in utero.
Yes, the moment of conception. 2 cells join, and the geometric expansion begins. 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 16, 32.
64, 128. And then the mechanism gets very specific. At the exact moment the embryo reaches 256 cells.
The hard palate begins to form, the roof of the mouth.
And 256 is not just a random number. Like in computer science, it's fundamental. It's the number of values in an 8-bit byte.
Right. And in harmonic math, 256 hertz is often considered a scientific middle C.
So the author is suggesting that at this precise moment of harmonic expansion, our bodies prioritize the roof of our mouths. Why?
Because the human body, according to this framework, isn't primarily a machine for labor. It's an acoustic instrument designed for broadcast.
An acoustic instrument.
The author maps the pathway of energy, what they call divine light, directly onto our anatomy. It starts at the base. They describe the human pelvis as acting like a literal radar dish.
The pelvis as a radar dish. Okay, let's visualize that. It's this wide, bowl-shaped foundation. In the A-spire, this is the gray and red diamonds.
Right. It collects raw energy from the earth, our foundational physical current. And once it collects that energy, it reflects it upward, through the torso.
And the author uses this incredibly evocative phrase for the rib cage. They call them cathedral struts.
Yes, not ribs, cathedral struts.
That phrase fundamentally shifted how I view my own anatomy. Because if you think about flying buttresses in a Gothic cathedral, they aren't just holding up the roof.
They create a massive, open acoustic chamber inside.
Exactly. A space designed to allow the chanting of monks to resonate and amplify. By calling our ribs cathedral struts, the author implies the empty space in our chest, the heart center, is a sacred acoustic chamber.
We are walking cathedrals. The raw energy is collected by the pelvic radar dish, channeled up into the acoustic chamber, infused with love, and continues up the aspire.
Into the throat. Which brings us to the hyoid bone.
Yes, the mechanism that translates this internal energy into external reality.
I admit, I had to review my anatomy for this one. It's a horseshoe-shaped bone in the neck. But what makes it so critical?
What makes it unique is that it's the only bone in the body that doesn't articulate with any other bone. It's completely disconnected from the rest of the skeleton.
It just floats there.
Suspended entirely by a complex web of muscles and ligaments. Because it's floating, it isn't locked down by friction.
So it acts like a tuning fork.
Literally a biological tuning fork. When energy rises into the throat, the hyoid bone vibrates. Its muscular suspension allows it to tune the raw energy, vocal cords, and breath into a specific harmonic signature.
It takes your internal frequency, whether it's 20 or 500, and translates it into an acoustic vibration. Think about how your throat feels when you're terrified.
You get a lump in your throat.
Right. Your muscles tighten. You're pulling the suspension cables on your tuning fork, changing the frequency. So the radar dish gathers, the cathedral amplifies, the tuning fork calibrates.
And then the energy travels up one final step to that piece of anatomy from the 256 cell mark, the hard palate.
The roof of the mouth. The author argues it acts as a physical ski ramp for this tuned energy.
Exactly. The vibration hits the rigid, arched structure of the hard palate and is projected forcefully out into the physical world.
A biological megaphone designed to broadcast your consciousness.
In Technicolor, Dolby Stereo, multidimensional holographic sound, as the text says.
It's a powerful metaphor, but they seem to mean it literally, that our spoken words interact with the quantum field to mold reality.
They do, which brings up a sobering realization.
Yeah, what happens when the operator of the megaphone is consumed by fear? If I'm stuck in the root chakra at a frequency of 20 and I speak from that place,
You're using divine architecture to blast the world with the frequency of scarcity?
broadcasting pure destruction,
Yeah.
manifesting conflict and division.
That's the profound responsibility here. The hardware works perfectly no matter what software you run. The words we speak have a tangible, physical impact.
So we have this immense potential. The cathedral struts, the tuning fork. We could be operating at the frequency of divine judgment. But if that's true, why does the world look the way it does?
Why do we feel so trapped?
Exactly. If we are walking cathedrals of light, why are so many people struggling just to make ends meet?
The text addresses this directly. We feel trapped because our immense creative energy is being systematically siphoned off.
We're plugged into a power grid designed to drain us.
Right. And to explain this grid, the author looks back at an ancient narrative that established the 4,000-year-old famine mindset.
The story of Joseph in Egypt.
Yes.
Now, if you went to Sunday school, you know Joseph as the hero. Technicolor Dreamcoat saves the region from famine. The ultimate divinely inspired project manager.
But the author points to the later half of that story in Genesis chapter 47. When the famine hits, the people come to Joseph for the stored grain. But he doesn't just give it to them.
He demands all their money first.
And when that runs out, he demands their livestock. Then their land. And finally, having lost everything, the people sell their own bodies into servitude to Pharaoh just to survive.
Buy us and our land for bread. Right?
Yes. The author views this as the birth of institutionalized scarcity, an ideology that demands individuals sacrifice their inherent sovereignty and labor to a centralized power.
Whether that's a literal pharaoh or a massive multinational corporation.
Exactly. Just to ensure basic biological survival.
And the author argues this ancient trauma is still the operating system of the global economy today. They say we're at a massive crossroads.
Culminating in the phrase, a world where you own nothing and you will be happy.
Right. And I want to step in here for some context. The author is taking aim at this concept popularized by the World Economic Forum. Some people view that rental economy vision as a pragmatic solution to global crises. Others view it as a dystopian overreach. But our role today isn't to litigate global politics. We just need to understand how the author views it. And they view the own nothing model as the terminal manifestation of the Joseph famine.
The final stage of surrendering all physical sovereignty. To escape this trap and ascend the aspire, the text says we must fundamentally dismantle the mechanisms that drain our energy.
And they introduce a critical linguistic equation for this. Currency equals current.
Let's unpack that. When we talk about spending currency, what does that actually represent?
Well, it represents your life force.
Right?
You spend hours of your finite life, your energy, to perform a task.
And in exchange, you got a token currency that stores the value of that expended energy. So your bank account is a literal battery holding your life's current.
And the modern system funnels this current upward and outward, away from the individual, into massive centralized reservoirs.
So the solution is radical decentralization. Stop supporting big entities, big corporations, big agriculture, big pharma.
Buy local, support local businesses, trade with your neighbors.
The author visualizes this by returning to the mechanics of the gray diamond. They say our current societal structure runs anti-clockwise.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
In an anti-clockwise society, economics driven by monopolies dictates politics. Politicians, depending on that money, enact legislation that controls the social sphere. And that top-down control degrades the physical environment.
Everything flows from the top down. So the fix is to reverse the rotation.
To a clockwise rotation. This begins with the social sphere, the community coming together with shared values from the heart center.
And that shared vision instructs the politics. The politicians are just administrators hired to maintain the stage.
Exactly. And once the stage is fair, natural, decentralized economics flourishes. which then protects the physical environment.
Okay, the clockwise rotation sounds beautiful,
Yeah.
but I have to interject with some modern reality here.
Oh, definitely.
Asking people to decentralize is asking them to intentionally introduce massive friction into their lives. It's magically convenient to tap my phone and have an obscure item shipped across the world to my porch by tomorrow.
We are deeply addicted to that convenience.
We are. Buying local requires driving to a store. They might not have the color I want. It might cost more. The text even says if a service doesn't exist locally, I should view it as a business opportunity and build it myself.
That is a massive behavioral hurdle.
Huge. So how does the text propose we incentivize an entire civilization to abandon the convenience of the Pharaoh's grain store?
Well, the author acknowledges that moral pleading isn't enough. You can't collapse a 4,000-year-old system by just asking people to shop at farmers markets.
Right, that's not going to cut it.
To reverse the flow, you have to fundamentally rewrite the underlying rules of how the state funds itself. Remove the mechanisms that enforce scarcity.
Which brings us to the most radical proposal. A complete overhaul of taxation, the 1% solution.
This is where the philosophy rubber meets the hard economic road. To set the stage, we have to look back at Genesis 47 again.
When Joseph instituted the rule, give 1/5 of it to Pharaoh.
The first recorded instance of an income tax, a 20% extraction on physical labor. The author argues that taxing human labor is inherently punitive and archaic.
And the primary driver of modern debt enslavement.
Yes. When you tax income, you are actively punishing the generation of energy. The harder you work, the more of your current is extracted. It enforces the survival mindset of the root chakra.
So the foundational pillar of New Earth economics is what?
The state must completely and permanently abolish income tax. All of it.
Zero income tax. Okay, I know listeners are asking the logistical question right now. If the government isn't taking a slice of our paychecks, how does society function?
How do we pave roads and run hospitals?
Exactly. We can't run a civilization on good vibes and chakras.
The author provides a specific dual-level economic mechanism. First, on a macro level, the national government shifts fundamentally. Instead of extracting wealth, it acts as a massive broker.
A broker for the citizens.
Right. The government buys commodities produced locally, sells them on the international market for a profit, and uses that profit to back and boost the value of the local currency.
So it's moving away from fiat currency backed by debt to a currency backed by actual physical productivity.
Exactly. The state becomes an engine that injects energy rather than a vacuum that extracts it.
Okay, that handles the macro value. But what about day-to-day funding? Paying civil servants.
This is where the 1% usage fee comes in. To fund administrative functions, the state implements a flat, frictionless fee on the movement of money.
A usage fee, not a tax.
The terminology shift is vital. It's a fee for utilizing the societal infrastructure to conduct commerce. Exactly 1%.
Let's walk through the example from the text. Say I spend R5,000 at a local grocery store. What happens?
At the moment of transaction, you're automatically charged a 1% usage fee. 1% of 5,000 is 50. That 50 units goes seamlessly to the national government. The other 5,000 goes directly to the grocer.
Who pays zero income tax on that revenue?
Zero.
The psychology behind this is brilliant. It's like the analogy of a toll road.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Under an income tax system, it's like the government charges you a massive fee just for owning a car and another fee for having a job to drive to, whether you use the highway or not.
Which breeds resentment.
It feels like a penalty for existing. But a 1% transaction fee is like a toll booth. You only pay a tiny fraction when you actively choose to use the public infrastructure to move goods. It feels fair.
And by shifting revenue to a fee on the velocity of exchange, you align the state's incentives with the people's prosperity.
Because the state only benefits when the community is actively trading and prospering.
Right. The government is forced to be a genuine servant, just ensuring commerce can flow.
And what about the local level? Municipalities that provide water and trash collection.
The author envisions streamlining them, too. Municipalities are stripped of the ability to levy property taxes.
Which, again, the author views as Pharaoh claiming your land.
Exactly. Instead, local governments become strict fee-for-service providers. They charge fixed amounts solely for the physical services they render. Like a public utility company, nothing more.
Zooming out, you can really see how this links back to the Diamond Spire. You can't expect people to reach the crown chakra and operate at 1,000 if the economic system keeps them panicked about survival.
By removing income tax and implementing a 1% usage fee, you unplug the machine that generates fear. You free up the individual's current.
And with that surplus energy, they can ascend. Which brings us to the culmination of this journey.
The final destination.
Right. When you combine a biologically tuned human, a decentralized local community, and a frictionless economic system, what is the result?
It leads us to what the author calls New Earth.
And New Earth is not a spaceship, right? We aren't relocating.
No, it's a structural transition in how human consciousness operates collectively here. It's a departure from linear competitive thinking into a society based on mutual aid and abundance.
The author uses this beautiful imagery of the kaleidoscope.
Yes. Comparing our current state to a jar of broken glass, constantly scraping against one another.
But in the New Earth model, we aren't broken shards. Each person is a multifaceted diamond. In a kaleidoscope, the pieces don't compete for space.
They catch the light and reflect it off each other to create harmony.
And the beauty of the whole depends on the unique shape of every single piece. The text also calls this the murmuration of humanity.
Like those massive flocks of starlings you see swirling in the sky at dusk.
The mechanics of a murmuration are amazing. There's no centralized control, no pharaoh bird barking orders.
Exactly. They fly through hyper-local, decentralized awareness. Each bird only pays attention to its immediate neighbors. If one shifts, the neighbors adjust instantly.
A highly complex whole, coordinated entirely through peer-to-peer trust. That's the vision for New Earth.
And when a society reaches that level, the author delivers that final declaration.
The famine is over.
Yeah.
The artificial scarcity, the biological broadcasting of fear. It ends the moment we realize we have the architecture to build something else.
Looking back, it's staggering. We started with a basic corporate project management tool, the 8-step gray diamond.
A boardroom flowchart.
Right, and the author extrapolated it into a unified theory of biological function, macroeconomic reform, and spiritual liberation.
It's a breathtaking piece of intellectual architecture. It challenges us to see our civic duties, physical health, and spiritual lives as one continuous flow of current.
It really does.
And as we wrap up today, I want to leave the listener with a final thought. We covered massive concepts today, but I want to bring it down to your biology.
Megaphone.
Yeah. The source material says, sound can literally mold abstract thought and spirit into shape. We talked about your pelvis as a radar dish, your ribs as cathedral struts, your hyoid bone as a tuning fork, and your hard palate as a ski ramp for reality.
You are a highly engineered acoustic instrument.
So what reality are you unknowingly building right now with the casual words you speak to yourself?
That's the real question.
When you mutter that you don't have enough time, that you'll never get out of debt, are you using your divine architecture to lay the bricks of your own prison?
Broadcasting the famine.
If the Diamond Spire is real and the 4,000-year famine is over, then the cages are open, but you have to be the one to walk out. And maybe the first step in building New Earth is to simply stop speaking the language of starvation.